On today's episode of the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast with Flip and Steel, it's a little waiver wire Monday special, along with, you guessed it, big time bets and DFS targets, baby. Let's go.
You're Locked On Fantasy Hockey, your daily podcast on fantasy hockey. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is going on, everybody? And welcome back to your favorite and hottest podcast. It's the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast with Flip and Steel. We can be found across all platforms you get your favorite content. And thank you so much for making us your first listen every single day. You know we are a part of the Locked On Network. Today's episode is brought to you by BetOnline. BetOnline has you covered this season with more props, odds, and lines than ever before. BetOnline, where the game starts. On today's episode, my friends, we are here for a Monday waiver wire special. We'll be starting with that. And of course, the bread and butter of this show, what Steele and I do best most of the time, DFS targets for Monday's 5-game board. And of course, big time bets and our locks of the night. Those are coming up, Steele. Welcome back, my friend. It's been a busy and a bit stressful weekend, so it's nice to talk hockey again with you, my brother. Let's get right into it, dive into it. Waiver Wire Monday, it's an important stretch of the season. I keep saying it. I might be a played-out record, but that's okay. Hopefully the people are listening. Some of these waiver wire moves, pal, are going to be important over these next couple of weeks.
It's very important. You know, we're coming down the stretch. There's 4 weeks left before playoffs start for your fantasy leagues, and this is where you can really make a run. And if you're outside looking in, pick up these players that we're suggesting. It would really help your fantasy team. And you know, if you're in a playoff spot, these are guys that you can help, guys that can help your team as well, and just make sure you solidify a spot in the playoffs. This first guy I want to talk about, he's on one of the best teams in the league right now. He's very underrated because of how well offensively this team runs. But it's Rasmus Anderson of the Calgary Flames on the blue line for them. 348 fantasy points so far in the season. Wow. He is owned at 49% on Yahoo and a little bit more on ESPN at 58%. So it might be a little bit more tough on ESPN to grab him. But he's had a phenomenal season. I think he's been very underrated and needs to be shown some love. He's having a career year, Flip. 31 points on the season, 9 more points than his career best, which was 2 years ago when he had 21. And I think there was a lot of debate about what this Calgary Flames team would look like on the blue line. You know, obviously Mark Giordano got picked up by the Seattle Kraken in the expansion draft. You know, was there going to be a top guy on that blue line can really help them offensively? Anderson has done so a phenomenal job, I have to say. 4 points in his last 4 games. He's on that top power play unit, 11 power play points for him, 101 shots, 87 blocks. And the good thing about this upcoming week, the Calgary Flames have 5 games this week. They play the Oilers, the Capitals, the Lightning, the Red Wings, and the Avalanche. So a big week for the Calgary Flames coming up, a lot of games. And this is the week to do so and pick a guy up like Rasmus Anderson, especially when they have 5 games on the schedule.
A lot of those numbers that you just threw out, Steele, are actually quite surprising. And he's, you know, we talk about this a lot because that's where the value is with these underrated guys. But I would say that this is an underrated season for him. And a very good option for you on your blue line. I actually have a couple of pieces on the blue line as well, Steele, and I'll start with one of the guys that I think we've mentioned before and thrown some love to. Still only 26% owned in ESPN leagues, and that's Damon Severson on the New Jersey Devils. And despite a relatively garbo blue line in New Jersey, he has 7 goals and 24 assists for 31 points. Also, what I'd like to note about him, he's a power play specialist. You know, 12 of those points have come on the power play. And, you know, he's an appealing player on a not very appealing team. And at 26%, he's a very good option. He skates on the top line, a top defensive pairing. He plays top power play unit minutes. And he's just, you know, he gets a lot of advantageous situations. So Damon Severson is definitely one of those guys that I think we've mentioned already. But still, at 26.4%, I had to bring him up again, Steele, because he's continuing to have a good season, and he should be available in, well, like I just said, most leagues.
Look, Damon Severson had a lot of opportunity when Dougie Hamilton was out for injury. Hamilton is back, of course. Ty Smith as well on the blue line for the Devils.
Right.
He was a healthy scratch the last couple of games. Dougie Hamilton and Ty Smith both scored on Sunday in that over the St. Louis Blues. But look, Damon Severson is not someone to pass up on either. He's been phenomenal so far this season. It might hurt a little bit because Hamilton is back, but again, he's going to get some power play minutes. He's going to get some PK minutes, and he's been a phenomenal defense for the Devils as well. I'm going to continue rolling with the defenseman because there's a lot of guys I think are overlooked. And, obviously you're not, these are, some guys you could possibly draft in later rounds. This guy I'm going to talk about, you're probably not going to draft him, but he's going to be a guy you can pick up on the waiver wire. And that's Matt Roy of the Los Angeles Kings. Flip and I just talked about, the Kings on Friday's episode. Don't doubt them. They're a legitimate team this year. And Matt Roy has done a phenomenal job on the blue line. 376 fantasy points for him. This is a guy you can most likely pick up. 20% owned on Yahoo, 5% owned on ESPN. He's going to be there. Look, this is a guy that's not going to do a lot offensively, but he does a lot in the other categories. He's got 17 points in 54 games so far this season. His career best is 18 points in 70 games. So,
True.
It's pretty much a career year for him as well, alongside the first guy I talked about, Rasmus Anderson.
Right.
He's averaging 2.1 fantasy points per game. He does everything else. 133 shots, 99 hits, and 84 blocks. And like the Calgary Flames, they do have a busy schedule this upcoming week. 4 games on the schedule for them. They play the Bruins on Monday. Then they play back-to-back on the against the Sharks Thursday and Saturday, and then a game against the Florida Panthers on Sunday. So a busy week for the Los Angeles Kings as well. Take the opportunities right now if you need points. These are the guys that are going to be playing the most this week. You got to take a chance on them.
You have to, and I've mentioned it probably too much, but these are the kinds of time of the season that you can't afford a guy in your lineup injured or not playing well and getting no points whatsoever. So there's obviously some value in these guys that we've mentioned, Steele. And sure, they're not going to win you any league outright, but it's a nice little, bolstering effect to your lineup that you need to shore up these points, like you said, down the stretch. So critical in these fantasy situations because it might be the difference between, if your league pays out top 3 spots, you might be missing out on the money and missing just by a few points. So it could be critical down the stretch. You've talked about the D-men. I'm going to look up front to a guy that you've talked about, Steele, a little bit, Robert Thomas. Definitely underrated. All these guys are a little bit under the radar. 4th on the Blues, a very good team, by the way. Talked about them at length. 42 points for the Blues, and he gets a lot of opportunity on their top power play unit. All of his underlying stats, Deal, he's getting more shots, more time. Like all of these things are pointing in the right direction for this guy to really start to bust out. Hot of late as well. 3 goals and 7 assists over his last 9 games. And I think what I'd like to end with this player and why you have to take a look, 14.7% Steal. That doesn't make any sense to me, and I'm sure you'll back me up on that one.
Yeah.
But I'll leave it at this. He also plays on one of the best second lines in the game, and we've talked about them too. I know you like Tarasenko. I know you have him on a couple of different formats. He's centering Pavel Buchnevich and Tarasenko. That is a dirty little line. And at 14.7%, run to the waiver wire right now and thank me later and jump on Robert Thomas while he's hot and available.
Look, and that was the one critique I had about Robert Thomas when we talked about, our top 5 centermen under 22 years old. The one critique I had about him was that he doesn't shoot the puck enough. And if he can do that, he's going to be a top tier centerman in this league. And you just mentioned it, 3 goals, 7 assists in his last 10 games, I think you said.
Yep, 9.
And that's exactly what he needs to do to be, to elevate his game and have his name in the conversation with amongst these other young guys playing centerman. I think you hit it right on the nail there. Robert Thomas is a very underrated player. I still believe he's the second, like when we talked about our top 5 list, I still think he's still second for me on this list. If he can continue shooting the puck and, continue that going into the playoffs, the St. Louis Blues team is going to be very hard to play against.
I agree, my friend. I agree. Stay with us, guys. Stay tuned for after the break when we're going to be getting into big time bets and our DFS targets. But Steele, do you have any other waiver wire ads before I talk to everyone about one of our tasty new products?
I think we hit it on the nail. We mentioned all the
Mhm.
defensemen right there, 3 defensemen. You mentioned Robert Thomas. I think those are the top 4 guys looking going into this next week.
Some good options for you guys there. And make sure you check us out on Twitter, check us out on YouTube, and everywhere you find your content. And make sure you check out this next product, Athletic Greens. I want to tell you all about it because we use it every single day. Steel is already hooked. We use it before and after the gym, and it's great. What is this stuff? 1 scoop of delicious Athletic Greens. You're absorbing 75 high quality vitamins, minerals. It's a whole food source superfood with probiotics, and it helps you start your day right. The special blend of ingredients supports your gut health, nervous system, immune system, boosts energy, helps you focus, helps you age, all the good things you want. Right now, it's time to reclaim your health and arm your immune system with convenient daily nutrition. To make it easy, Athletic Greens is giving you 1 year free supply of immune support vitamin D and 5 free travel packs with your first purchase. All you have to do, visit athleticgreens.com/NHL network. Again, that's athleticgreens.com/NHL network. Take ownership of your health and pick up the ultimate daily nutritional insurance. Athletic Greens.
Thank you for making Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast your first listen every day. For your next listen, you have to go check out Locked On Now podcast, nightly recaps of every NHL game with analysis from our local experts. It's free and available wherever you get your podcast. Flip, we got to get into the DFS segment of this show right here. 5 games on the schedule for Monday night. I'm looking at 2 games in particular. There are a bunch of juicy matchups there, but I for sure was looking at that Florida Panthers versus Buffalo Sabres matchup. The Sabres dominated the Leafs over the weekend. The Sabres still one of the worst teams in the Atlantic Division. The Florida Panthers, the best team in the Atlantic Division. And I'm going with Alexander Barkov and Mason Marchman. 7 points in the last 4 games. 5 of those being assists for Barkov. 4 points for Mason Marchman. Marchman's playing on that top line with Barkov. Of course, you're going to be paying premium price for Barkov. But Mason Marchman's going to be a lot cheaper, and he's playing on that top line. So I got to go with them. And then I'm throwing Aaron Ekblat on the blue line as well. He's having a terrific season for the Florida Panthers. And, I think his name should be in the Norris conversation.
Well, we talked about it a little bit on Friday with Josh from The Score about if Jacob Chikrin goes to Florida. They have another amazing piece there. But you mentioned how good Ekblad has been. We talked about the Florida Panthers a lot, and it's because they deserve that kind of attention and that kind of credit, Steele. They are for real. And I don't think you can really go wrong at any point targeting those guys from a DFS perspective. Barkov, Hubrido, these guys are special. There's a lot of great forwards on that team. I'm actually looking to what I think is the juiciest matchup of the night, Steele. The Edmonton Oilers at the Calgary Flames. Battle of Alberta. I think this is going to be goals aplenty. I talk about this all the time. Take a look at those third lines on each team. You'll find some value. I'm also looking at a guy like Elias Lindholm, who is red hot. And you're going to pay, a premium price for him because he is so red hot. And I'll talk about that in a couple of minutes. Stay tuned for big time bets because I'm going to hammer this angle. But definitely take a look at the Edmonton Oilers Calgary Flames matchup where I think there's going to be a lot of goals aplenty.
I have to disagree with you, Flip. I don't think there's going to be a ton of goals. I don't think there's going to be a ton of goals. I think it's going to be a great matchup. I think it's going to be very physical. We know the Battle of Alberta is always like that. It's going to be physical. It's going to be gritty.
It when we disagree, by the way.
I like it too. I do like it. I like
spicy.
It a lot. It creates the side bets, which you have been absolutely dominating me in. So I got to bounce back in that. But that's not why I'm doing it. I just think this game is going to be a tight game against, the teams in Alberta. And we've seen it so many times. There is a lot of star power in this game, but I think it's going to be a lot tighter, a lot cleaner. And defensively, that's what the Edmonton Oilers have been looking at. So they're going to have to be very defensive-minded going into this matchup. Again, you can't go wrong with some of the stars on those teams, but that wasn't the matchup I was looking at for my second game for Monday. Sure. I was looking at the Columbus Blue Jackets versus the Maple Leafs.
Okay.
I'm kind of sitting on a fence when it comes to my big-time bet, but for my DFS selections, I can't not continue to go with Patrick Weiner. He's been absolutely
worked out for you.
Absolutely fire since the start of 2022 for the Columbus Blue Jackets. The Blue Jackets did get the best of the Maple Leafs last week in that 4-3 overtime win.
Mm-hmm.
I got to continue going with Patrik Laine, and I'm also going to go with Gustav Nyquist, who's his left winger as well. And the reason I'm going with him is because he's not going to be expensive at all. He's going to be around $2,000, $2,300. He's had a very tough year, but he's still playing on that top line, and they're going to get the opportunities against the Leafs with the way the goaltenders have been going for Toronto. So
that's true.
Patrik Laine, Gustav Nyquist, Zakarensky's back in the lineup. He just got a goal in his last game as well. You could throw him on the blue line with Aaron Ekblat, who I suggested. Vladislav Gavrikov has been, very underrated. He's not a very offensive-minded defenseman, but he gets a ton of shots, he gets a ton of blocks, and he can put the points up from time to time. So those are the two games I'm looking at, and those are the two 5 to 10 players I was looking at.
Laine has been nothing short of sensational. I know you've made a little bit of bank off of him and his hot streak, and you got to ride the hot hand, especially when, we can talk about that when we talk about the bets, but I don't know what's happening. Well, we do know what's happening with the Leafs. They are pooping the bed again, and just the goaltending is not good enough. And I understand the injuries to Muzzin, and the blue line leaves to be something to be desired, but they need to be better. And until those goalies start to be better, I think you have to continue to, take the players on the offensive side of the opposing squad. Laine is red hot. You can't go wrong with that. My last guy that I would target, though, Steele, because I am looking at this game, of course, from a betting side of things, but Jeremy Sweyman for the Boston Bruins has been red hot, a very, very solid goaltender. I think we talked about the goaltending scenario for the Bruins a few times, but he has been lights out. I believe he shut out the LA. They're playing the LA Kings tonight. They shut out the Kings last week. I would look to him. You're going to probably pay a decent price for him because he has been so hot, but he would be the goalie that I'd be double circling, Steele, for tonight's matchups DFS wise.
I would completely agree with you. Even though the Panthers are playing the Sabres have been scoring a ton of goals of late. I think out of all the matchups on Monday, that would be the game I would target for my goaltender. And I think whether it's Jeremy Sweyman or Linus Ullmark, it probably will be Sweyman. But again, you have to go with this matchup because, the Kings, we have talked about it. The Kings are not a team to be denied. They have had a stellar season, but Sweyman, he's been unreal for the Boston Bruins this year, Flip.
And the Kings don't score a ton of goals, right? They're not an offensive dynamo. They're one of those nitty-gritty teams, that they really, the whole team is their strength, right? They play a team game. There's really no standout superstar. Ans Kopitar is a great player, but you know what I'm saying? There's really no one who jumps off the page there. So I think it's kind of the right angle to take. Hot goalie, check. Playing against a team who doesn't score a lot, check. Recently good against this team, double check. So definitely take a look at a guy like Sweyman.
And to add on to your point, the LA Kings just beat the Buffalo Sabres Sunday 3-0, but 2 of those were empty net goals in the last minute of the game. So you're right. They don't score a ton of goals. And with the way Jeremy Swayman's played this season, that would be the goalie I would go with too. So absolutely love that we're on the same page for the goalie department there. Again, the Colorado Avalanche are playing the New York Islanders. Like Flip said, the Edmonton Oilers are playing the Calgary Flames. And then the 2 other matchups that I mentioned that I would be going with. So there are a lot of, players you can still go out there. Nathan McKinnon, Mikko Rantanen, Connor McDavid. But I still think the 2 matchups that I said, from my perspective, are the ones that are going to have the most amount of goals, get you the most amount of points, and will save you some money with some of the cheaper options and value guys in depth. So that's what I'm going with for DFS. We'll get into the big time bets very, very soon, but where you should place those bets is betonline.net. Football might be over this season, but basketball is in full steam for both pro and college hoops. BetOnline has you covered this season with more props, odds, and lines than ever before. BetOnline has up-to-the-minute info on pro and college hoops, NHL, boxing, UFC, along with live real-time updates of current games. BetOnline, where the game starts. And before we do get into big-time bets, I also have to tell you about Built Bars. Built Bars are covered in 100% real chocolate, contains 130 calories, 4 grams of sugar, and 17 grams of protein. I absolutely love these. I eat them before my workout, and they give me a lot of energy to get through my workout for the day. And they just taste delicious. There's so many different flavors to choose from: coconut almond, peanut butter brownie, raspberry, cookies and cream, salted caramel, mint brownie, and there's many, many more. Built Bar always comes out with new limited time flavors. And for this week, ruby chocolate, lemon dipped cheesecake, and caramel almond delight. Some delicious flavors right there for the taking. I, of course, still like my cookies and cream. I'm a cookies and cream guy, but there's so many different flavors to choose from. You got to try them all. Go to built.com and use promo code LOCKED15 and get 15% off your order. Use promo code LOCKED15 for 15% off at built.com. Thank you for making Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast your first listen every day. Don't forget, we are free and available on all platforms, which also includes YouTube. So please make sure you smash that subscribe and the follow button. We appreciate all the love out there so far. You guys have been awesome. Thank you for tuning in for the show. Flip, it is now time for big time bets where the money's made. You've been absolutely killing it the last week and a half, 2 weeks. I have been on a serious downtrend for my locks of the nights, as well as, just overall record. But
it happens.
Man, I have to throw it over to you because you've been killing it. Tell the people what they need and what games they should bet on.
Hey, man, this is the thing when you put your opinion out on the internet every single day. Sometimes you have to just take it on the chin, and sometimes it's not going to go good. And right now it's rolling pretty good for me. So, stay tuned. Like Steele said, hammer that subscribe button, hit us up on Twitter. DMs are open. Let me know how I can help. Let's keep it rolling, Steele. 5-game board. Mondays are sometimes tough, but I have 3 picks for everyone, and I'm going to start with a team that has been rolling and has been rolling for me, and I'm going to keep things real simple off the bat. Boston Bruins at home, money line, -185. I think that odd could be a lot lower. I think the revenge angle here for the Kings is keeping that at a very decent price. I think for considering how hot this Bruins team has been, this is a good pick for -185. I've talked about it. The Boston Bruins smell blood in the water. They know what's going on in Toronto, and that gap is closing rapidly. When a team sees that and they're pouncing, you got to pounce on that. The most recent matchup between these two, we know what happened. It was a 7-0 pump show at Bruins just dominated the LA Kings. It was their most complete game of the season, arguably. And I'll end with this to back my point here. The Kings will be they're on the second night of a back-to-back. Like you said, they played Sunday afternoon and won 2 empty net goals. That was a close game. They are on the end of their East Coast swing, and they have played 4 games in 6 nights as of tonight. I love this spot for the Boston Bruins at home to continue to cook. -185 all day. Give me the Bruins on the money line, Steele. First pick of the night.
I like that pick right there. We already mentioned all the reasons why you should go with Jeremy Sweyman because of the LA Kings not being able to score, as well as just Swayman's play. I'm going to make this real quick. Panthers on the puck line versus the Buffalo Sabres, as well as anytime assist from Barkov. The puck line I have missed a couple of times, but again, it's the Panthers versus the Sabres. And anytime Barkov assists, he's been absolutely dominant. Like I mentioned before, he's got 7 points in his last 4 games, 5 of those being assists. So you got to take Barkov anytime assist.
Ride the hot hand, man. And hey, we've been throwing a lot of player props out there, and I've been honest, they're not always the greatest odds, but they're not terrible either, especially when these teams are rolling. Peripheral assists, they happen all the time. So it's been panning out for us. Continue to hammer it and look around for the best odd, right? You might shop around a little bit. Our boys at BetOnline got you. So I'm going to take a look at a player prop. Speaking of which, shocker, not my lock of the night, Steele, but I'll end with that. Edmonton Oilers at the Calgary Flames. I talked about it. Elias Lindholm has been sensational while anchoring that top line. We've talked about how good that top line has been. Definitely in the mix for one of the best this year. That line of Johnny Gaudreau, Lindholm, and Tkachuk. I believe it's those 3. Lindholm has only been held off the score sheet once in 15 games. Steele, over the past 15 games, this guy has 13 goals and 11 assists, and no one's really talking about him. I'd like this game to be high scoring. I talked about that. You're not feeling that. That's okay. I think this top line is going to feast against the Oilers. I think Lindholm will be a big part of that. Elias Lindholm, anytime assists. He's just red hot right now, Steele, and you got to ride the hot hand. That's what we're going to do until they go cold.
You're absolutely right. I watched that Flames versus Avalanche game over the weekend. Elias Lindholm and Johnny Gaudreau were absolutely outstanding in that game. sniping it. Gaudreau got the game winner, but Lindholm, I think he potted a couple. He for sure had one. So you got to ride the hot hand. That's why you're going with Lindholm. I'm going with Barkov. My final pick of the night is going to be the Maple Leafs on the money line. I think they're going to get revenge from that 4-3 loss in overtime from last week. Like I said, I was sitting on the fence. I did go with the Columbus Blue Jackets players for my DFS selections. This is going to be a high-scoring game, I believe. There's a lot of goals, a lot of star power on both sides. The goalies up for Toronto, of course, have not been great. The goaltending for the Columbus Blue Jackets as well has just been very inconsistent. So I think this is going to be a high-scoring game. Taking the Maple Leafs on the money line, but my lock of the night is anytime assist from Alexander Barkov.
I like it. I'm worried a little bit. I wouldn't bet the over or the under here, like, because I think it really could go either way. Lean over, but for some reason the Leafs have to start playing better defensively, and I don't know who it is in net. I don't really care, actually, as a Leafs fan, who it is. Mrazek, David Ayers, it doesn't matter. I bring someone out of the rafters as long as they can stop a puck. I don't care. And right now that's not happening in Toronto. And while I do like the revenge angle, the Leafs have to start playing better at some point or they're going to fall right out of it, like classic scenario, hammer the panic button in Toronto. But I actually think this is going to be a close game. I'm going to cop out for my lock of the night at a decent odd here. Blue Jackets puck line plus 1.5, minus 145. I think this will be a close game regardless, Steele. I really do see it being a one-goal game, and I'll throw this at you. Blue Jackets, 3-2 in their last 5 against Toronto, so 3 wins out of their last 5. Those 2 losses, both one-goal games. The Jackets are coming off of 2 tough losses to 2 good teams in the LA Kings and the red-hot Boston Bruins. Both losses, 1 goal. The Leafs are a mess right now, and you can definitely sense that it's getting close to panic button time in Toronto, whether, it's right or wrong. 1 bad goal on Jack Campbell or whoever's in net, the sky's going to start falling on these Leafs, and I could see this being a close game. But I also don't deny that the money line pick is probably where I would go if it was a money line bet steal. But my lock of the night, Blue Jackets, puck line plus 1.5 for the odd of minus 145.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a close game too. Like I said, I think it's a coin flip, but I do think the Leafs do come out with the win against the Columbus Blue Jackets. So Flip's lock of the night is going to be Blue Jackets on the puck line. My lock of the night is going to be anytime assist from Alexander Barkov. I like both of those because I think Barkov's just been red hot. You said it yourself. The Columbus Blue Jackets have been in really close games of late, and it's probably most likely going to be a very, very close game. So I like both of our locks of the night.
Thank you.
Pencil it in, lock it in, place your bets, make your money. Thank you so much for making Locked On Fantasy Hockey your first listen every day. If you want more gambling advice on what you should pick every day, make sure to check out Locked On Bets for your second listen. It's your daily one-stop shop for all your gambling needs. Locked On Bets is hosted by your boy Q with insight from Lee Sterling. It's free and available on all podcast platforms as well, just like this podcast right here. So like I said before, please hammer the subscribe, hammer the follow button. Flip and I appreciate all the support out there. Leave some comments on the YouTube video. Send some messages on our Twitter at Locked On Fantasy Hockey Show. We'll get back to you as soon as possible with whatever questions you might have, whether it's a trade or anything coming up in your fantasy league. We'll get back to you as soon as possible. Try to help you out as much as we can. Thank you again for tuning in for today's episode with Flip and I. Have a great day. Good luck with all your bets tonight, and we shall see you back here again tomorrow.
Peace.